it's time for Tim's takes. And so we've got a few topics that are kind of hot right now based on recent news or things that are upcoming, and I want to talk through those and just take a few minutes on each one and kind of share where I'm coming from, and see what others think about it as well a little bit. But mostly this is just for me to kind of react to certain things that are happening and hopefully give a little bit of a context or maybe a bit of a different perspective on it. So first I want to talk about Dignitas. The news coming out, I believe it was yesterday, that they have re-signed Dardoch, and he will be their LCS starting jungler for 2021. I think this is a move that competitively, I think there are a lot of different opinions on it. You saw the reactions on Twitter and on Reddit being fairly polarized. A lot of people are like, yeah, great, Dardoch's really good. He's underappreciated. He's going to be good for this roster. I'm glad they brought him back. And you also had a lot of people saying, what a big mistake. He's a terrible player. Why would they possibly keep him around? And I understand both perspectives on it. I think Dardoch is a guy that has always had a lot of skill. You could tell that when he first came in with Team Liquid, it was Dardoch and Matt and Lorlo and I believe that was with Phoenix and Piglet, and they did some really big things, and that was impressive. And I think that earned him a lot of fans who have stayed with him. There's been a lot of drama in his past. His teams haven't had much success in the past few years, but there's always been something there to say, the high points of Dardoch's play are worth pursuing and worth keeping around. And we haven't heard the same kind of team environment issues or problems like that recently. And I think that while it's impossible to talk about Dardoch and not factor those in from the first couple of years of his career, I don't think it's actually a key talking point about him anymore. And it's not something that should really affect the way you evaluate him as a player or a team's decision to put him on the roster. I think he's good enough quality to be in the LCS right now. I think coming into 2020, I had much bigger concerns there because the way he played in Academy in 2019 had raised a lot of doubts for me. I thought he looked very poor in Academy, and to some extent, I think that's the environment. Some players are going to look a lot better in a more competitive league. Their mindset's going to be different. I think Dardoch was one who, in Academy, didn't take it as seriously. He just wanted to try and style on people, and he wasn't too concerned about winning or losing. And I think that was a bit of an issue. But he was given a chance, and I think he played better at the LCS level. So I think, there aren't really concerns that, like, oh, hey, there are these Academy guys who'd be better than him. Why aren't you giving a shot to a younger player? I don't think there are players in Academy that would be clearly better than him. I think there are players in Academy or below that who, given enough time, at least a full split, probably more, might end up better than him. But that's a bit of a long shot. And so I don't blame an org that doesn't want to take that route. I do want to acknowledge that the current jungle meta, fits Dardoch really well. He's that kind of give me the resources, let me carry, play through me kind of jungler. We don't know what the meta is going to look like in 2021 for that. If it stays kind of similar or a different version of the carry jungler meta, that could be really good and make Dignitas' move look really good. But if it's more of the, not that he can't play Sejuani or Gragas or these kinds of things, I think he can, but there's a little more opportunity for him to fail, I think, in that kind of a meta. The thing that I think is really interesting about this move is that Dignitas announced it, before the offseason really kicks off, before the contracts all come up and so on. They announced this, they put it on social media, as an isolated move, and to me that's strange because this is not adding a new player. It's not, a big star, really, in my opinion, who they're re-signing and want to make a big deal. Like if FlyQuest can come out and say, we re-signed Santorin, that's a big deal. That's very much worth celebrating publicly. But Dardoch is not on that level. He doesn't have that kind of star power fan base, in my opinion, and he's not that level of quality as a player either. So putting this out as an announcement in isolation to me feels very odd, and I think invites a lot of, like, you guys seem to think this is a bigger deal than it really is, and stuff like that. To me, it would have made a lot more sense to hold off on announcing the Dardoch news until you had more of a full team to announce. Because that's where my real competitive assessment of this move will come in, is how does this fit in with what they're doing? Are they retaining Johnson and Aframu? Are they, what are they doing in their solo lanes? And you know, if they do well enough, I would love to see them retain Johnson and Afremu, and then either go for, you know, high potential players in the solo lanes, or, you know, bring in a really good quality free agent, you know, maybe a potential star there to pair well with Dardoch. And if that happens, then the Dardoch move might look fine. If they end up with kind of weak solo lanes, and looking for Dardoch to kind of be the star or be the front runner, then I'm not sure. I might have bigger doubts about this roster. So I'd really rather see Dardoch announced within the context of a full 5-man, or at least 4, of what they're doing. And then I think both acknowledging that he is a polarizing player to the community, and that he's not a superstar signing who really needs to be celebrated on his own, I think that would make a lot more sense and would have fit a lot better. So really, I have some questions about why they wanted to announce this at this timing, and with this level of, you know, fanfare is a strong word, but I think you know what I mean. But I think the move competitively could be fine, and I'm kind of reserving judgment overall for that. So next I want to talk about TSM. And the big rumor here is that they are dropping their bottom lane. And that's a really big deal. Doublelift and Biofrost are players with, you know, big, long-running TSM legacies. You know, been off TSM for a while, came back, all of these things. And also players that, you know, very, very closely identified with the organization, helped them win this LCS title in summer, go to Worlds. You know, it doesn't go very well, obviously. If they choose to drop the bot lane, it's fascinating, because from a competitive standpoint, I completely get it. And I would almost say I'd advocate for it, that I think they can upgrade their bottom lane with players, and especially players that are probably a lot cheaper. But if you step back and look at the overall context, it's actually very surprising that they would consider this. If you would have asked me, if there'd been no rumors, no news, and you'd ask me, will TSM replace their bottom lane? I would have pretty strongly said no. I highly doubt it. Maybe Biofrost they replace, but how can they get rid of Doublelift? Player with this legacy to him, with this fan base, with the personal relationship he has with their general manager, with Lena. All of these things make it so you go, I don't know how they could manage it. I don't know how they could get away with dropping Doublelift. And yet, apparently, they're considering it, which is actually very encouraging to me about the way TSM are going to run themselves, because you can get a bit of a vibe with TSM that there's a bit of nepotism isn't quite the right word, but you know, they value kind of relationships, and they value you know, giving the players a lot of say in what happens and how the team is built, and they're not necessarily stepping back and treating it as much of a business as some other orgs, and making business choices about what's going to help the team the most, what's going to be the kind of the cleanest and best way to do these things. So, you know, I really like to see the fact that, assuming that these rumors and the rumors came out, I believe, from a stream from I Will Dominate, you know, so hard to say whether that's really accurate and whether it actually will happen. And even if that was accurate when he was told, maybe that changes, right? Maybe they look at community reaction and they adjust their plans, or, you know, the replacement options they're looking at don't pan out, so they fall back on retaining Doublelift Biofrost. You know, there are all kinds of reasons this could change. But assuming that they do move forward with it, I think it's actually a really positive sign for the TSM organization. And I think competitively, it's probably not that hard to find an improvement, again, depending what they do with the rest of the roster. What they would actually do, what other players they'd look at, you know, I think we can spend a lot more time speculating on that. I think before looking at Treats as somebody who's going to free agency, I would have said bring up Lost and Treats as a duo from Academy. They were the best Academy bot lane in summer. If King was playing in summer, he would have been a better bot laner than Lost, but in the absence of King and his visa issues, Lost took over that job, that kind of position. Best bot laner in Academy, Lost and Treats, a great duo. They already exist inside the organization. I'm guessing, based on the way TSM, you know, gave Treats some time and then brought Biofrost back in, didn't give Treats an opportunity at Worlds after they're eliminated, things like that. I wouldn't be surprised if Treats is just thinking, nah, I'm not coming back to TSM, I'll go somewhere else. But maybe they can still convince him. Maybe if they say, hey, you're going to be our starter, you're going to play with Lost, off you go, maybe he agrees this is a good place to be. I think that would actually be a pretty good move. And even if they didn't change anything else, even if they ran it back with Broken Blade, Spica, Bjergsen, Lost and Treats, I think that roster could be pretty good. Maybe they make some other changes also, but overall, I'm encouraged by the idea that TSM are actively considering replacing their bottom lane. I think competitively, it wouldn't even be that bad if they didn't. I think they have options. They could go either direction and it might work. But if you take the overall picture of the likely budget layout that they have for Doublelift and Biofrost, and if you look at the context of TSM, being able to look past these kind of contextual factors that make it hard for them to make a move, make it hard for them to replace a Doublelift, I'm glad that TSM would be willing to think about things that way. So those are kind of my thoughts there. I think it'd be, there's a lot more we could talk about with the other players TSM could be considering, what this might mean for what they'd consider doing in other positions, top lane. I think I'd be pretty surprised if they were looking at any changes in jungle or mid, of course, but yeah, TSM bot lane. I'm very curious to see what actually happens beyond, just what's being rumored.